Damn, Brian. I have been in this room for book readings by people I know who have written a lot of books. And I was actually going to say earlier that I did not know you could configure the chairs to go this way. You get way more people when you do it like this. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. This is really overwhelming. Oh my gosh. Just people from every part of my life. Thank you.
Take it in.
Thank you all so much for coming, and forgive me if I get emotional, but this is
Okay, we're just Well, this seems like a great place to start because you weren't thinking about this when you were trying to figure out what the book was, right? So I think we should just lay some basic groundwork. This is a book set in, we'll say Hudson Valley-ishness, in a swing district in New York State, if you don't know where Hudson Valley-ish is. And it's essentially about an election, but I'm curious about, first of all, I'm curious to know when you decided that you wanted to write a novel.
I'm not sure I actually ever decided to write a novel.
Okay.
I would say, like many aspects of my journey, a lot of it has been accidental, but I think accidental in a way where I subconsciously have set the circumstances in which I end up doing the thing I actually want to do. Mm-hmm. Whether that be kind of accidentally getting a degree in dance and accidentally moving to Tel Aviv and then accidentally falling into a master's program in fiction and then journalism. I think at each stage, some impulse or something that excited me about performance, about writing, I found the opportunity, I found a path, and would just kind of take a step in that direction and let it take me to an unexpected place, which has brought me here, which is just wild. So I spent COVID teaching myself how to write a novel, and this is what
This
came
is
of
such
it.
a you story. I feel like you have taught yourself many things or have learned how to do many things. So this seems of a piece with that. But I'm actually curious. You say that you just had this thing you've been working on, but when did you figure out that the thing you were working on was a story about two political campaigns sort of squaring off against each other?
So
That's like the thumbnail version of this story.
Yeah.
It's more complicated.
So Town and Country concerns a congressional race in a rural district, a trendy rural district, and it's about a local family and a group of gay second homeowners, and it's about the way that the election upends their relationships and challenges their loyalties. So that's kind of the elevator pitch.
That is, okay, but do you want to interview yourself?
I've been practicing that. So when I moved to New York for Stephen 12 years ago, the Hudson Valley became part of my life, and a wonderful part of my life. And we've built an incredible community up there. I think there was something that was always a little uncomfortable for me about getting to split my time in these two places. Mm-hmm. It really felt like such a luxury that I didn't really know what to do with, and what my responsibilities were as a part-time resident, as a neighbor to both places. Right. Who are your actual neighbors if you have two sets, and where do you spend your energy, your empathy? Where do you volunteer? What community am I contributing to?
Well, a practical thing that comes up in the book, at least, implicitly, is where do you vote?
Yes.
Right? Where does your vote matter? Where do you, if you're living in New York City but spending your weekends or some portion of the rest of your time up there, Like, is it better because, you know, it's purple, so to speak?
It depends on the
there?
calculation you make,
Right.
right? It's what's the national map, and then if I am choosing to cast my vote up there because nationally that has more value, is that fair to the people who I'm living amongst who are there full time? And these were the questions that I started asking myself that that felt rich to explore and also important to explore. And not that I would come to a conclusion or say that this is right or this is wrong, but that I thought the questions were worth asking.
Mm-hmm.
And I was interested in exploring what happens to this group of characters who start to interact in unexpected ways and whose perspective starts to shift as a result.
Just procedurally, I'm curious about, there are a lot of characters in this book.
I had to think about, well, how do we let the reader know that they're going to meet a lot of people and we're going to see the story through all of their lenses, and to trust them to, you might have to juggle these names for a little bit, but slowly, as in any community, you will get to know them, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
yes.
like you enter a new place and you cannot keep track of the names. Everybody blurs together, especially gay guys and their husbands and partners. It's like you never know who belongs to whom.
Luke and Serge,
Yeah.
Eric and Alec. Yeah, at some point, you just get used to leaving the house and running into these people, like, as you turn the pages. Oh, I know who these people are now a little bit.
As you become part of their community, they become familiar to you. And so everybody says that, like, the first third, you're getting to know them. They're vibrant, dynamic characters. You're getting to know the politics and the atmosphere of this place. And then it'll settle in. And then, like, the second 2/3, like, really ramp up and get fun.
I love the way that you write about this. I don't know who your favorite person to spend time with was as a writer of sentences and a writer of dialogue, but I felt like he's a great instrument, Leon, to, like, stir the pot of the plot. And I'm wondering if you felt like you had to kind of restrain yourself from letting him go even crazier than he goes in this story.
Yeah, I think with Leon, who I do love, and it's funny, there were a lot of times when I questioned his role in the story and whether he was actually part of the themes that everything else explores, and whether the book could exist without him, and what would happen if we just, like, took him away. Like, even plot aside, because he does, you know, he is a stirrer.
He's bitchy.
Yeah.
He's self-pitying. He is desperate. He's kind of lovable. He thinks he's funny, but he's not.
Yes.
Stephen which
calls
is a
him
really hard thing to write, by the way.
Stephen calls him a weapon of self-destruction.
Oh.
Yes. But it's also about, like, how the group responds to them. I mean,
Right.
the group has
yes.
no interest in this bitter middle-aged man, but will forgive everything of this adorable, unformed boy. And that was part of the thing that felt necessary to explore in the book. And Leon's role is showing us the way that a community and a clique forms and excludes, and how hard it can be to penetrate, and what it means to not be let into the thing that you desperately want to be let in, and the way that people receive dismissal and what they do with it, and the rage and the anger of how that then is turned on others. That felt like something that actually I was just pulling from the political dynamics around us. I mean, in a lot of ways, Leon felt like a manifestation of everyone who had been denigrated, rejected, dismissed, even rhetorically in some political way. What did that do to their desire to enact a form of revenge when they are kept out of the thing that they maybe actually want to be a part of?
I really was struck by the way the election was kind of beside the point,
Well, exactly. I mean, I think that was the interesting thing to me, which was the idea that a novel also is meant to be partisan in some way. And for me, it's like the antithesis of what a novel can do, which is to pose questions to, there are 6 point of view characters here, none of whom are actually the candidates. And so while, of course, it's a political novel, but it's not actually a novel about politics. It's like a novel.
Personal. It's about the ways in which the politics have been personalized,
and it's about the way that it's about how politics are like the water that we all swim in, and the way that it affects our relationships. And so, and it's also the decisions that I made in writing it to not set it in an actual place, an undefined state, and a undefined time. So
you don't name the parties.
I don't name parties, and so they're not responding to politics today. It does exist in a kind of bubble, and so in that sense, it actually becomes something almost like a parable in a way. And there is something fantastical about it, largely because of how, frankly, decent most people are. Like, it is a book that very intentionally does not reflect the toxicity of the politics today, because I was thinking a lot about what fiction can do, and the way it has been used for, especially in addressing politics, and oftentimes we see that through satire, which is how I tried to start this book.
Oh, really?
It began as a satire.
Talk to me about that.
After a few drafts, Stephen was like, "You're not a satirist." And I was like, yeah, but satire is also like tools and techniques, and I can learn those, and I can do that. But then I realized it was also just like not my temperament and not my worldview, and it was also wasn't the thing that I wanted to offer with this story.
I don't think that. I mean, I'm trying to think as I say this of whether it's possible to be a satirist and also be fair.
It requires a degree of ridicule that, as I was writing it, like I didn't actually want to do.
That's not. I mean, you can be whoever you want to be as a novelist. I mean, many people turn to fiction to explore some part of themselves that doesn't work in any other like lived capacity. But I also think that it is very true to the person I know in terms of how open you are to all experiences, but also how you ultimately believe in the goodness of people. But go on, satirist, huh?
Yeah, well, that did not work.
Okay.
And then I ended up taking a more sincere approach to all the characters, and realized that fiction does a very good job of telling us the worst that is possible, and we see that a lot. And I think, especially now, we do not need help imagining the worst. I think we do it all the time. But with the same tools of fiction, you can also imagine something better. You can imagine the possibility of, well, what if people stayed in a relationship? What if, despite all these real things that people are dealing with. I mean, people are dealing, like this book deals
you got
with
the opioid crisis.
You got it all.
You got land management.
You got legacy of AIDS. You have faith,
prices.
You have economic disparity. You have the farming
journalism that's trying to kick your ass.
Journalism. The gutting of journalism. So it is all there. So it is not a happy novel per se, but there's still a way in which, even with those ingredients, you can imagine a community and thereby a society that does behave better and that does find its way to a healthier civic dialogue.
The thing that's going on here in every single relationship to me is how much work relationships are. Like, whether you want to destroy people or make their lives better, everybody in this novel is doing some kind of labor. And it it kind of touched me how hard everybody's working to like not crack up.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the other things that was a driving impulse of the novel was to show the work of staying in a relationship, because I think it's so much easier to walk away. And I think the thing that I wanted for every character here is to like try and maintain and to try and stay in a relationship, because I think that's like ultimately the challenge for all of us now. I think it is easy to retreat into isolation, into your bubble of certainty. I think the hard thing is to prioritize the relationship, to stay in the relationship, even when it's hard, even when you cannot bridge whatever political divide you have, and yet you've still decided that however complicated this relationship is, it is more worth whatever is trying to divide it.
There's a lot of Christianity in this book, I want to make the distinction because it's not Christianity. It's like Christianness, right? And I initially was like, well, that's an interesting choice, Brian.
Brian the Jew.
Old Jewish Brian. But then I'm like, but what is Christianity really doing? You know, because the most explicitly Christian character is also the character who is also having her own permeability issues. She is selling houses to people she hates, or doesn't want to understand. But I feel like can you talk to me about just what like Christianness, not as a religion, but as a kind of value, is doing in this book, and why you decided to use that in the way that you do? Because was there a moment where you thought like, I don't know, maybe I should throw some Jews in here?
I mean, I think the answer to that has to do with the role of faith and sexuality in my own experience, which is growing up in a Jewish household and with Jewish parents for whom my sexuality was just not an issue. When I came out, it was perfectly fine, and I never felt conflict between being able to participate in the Jewish community and be an out gay man. That was never something I had to reconcile. So I was interested in the experience where faith did not play a positive role in somebody's life, and frankly, growing up in a country where my ability to get married, the predominant voice in opposition to that tended to be a Christian voice. So I wanted to understand that. I wanted to enter the experience of somebody who was very vocal against that, in opposition to same-sex marriage, as Diane is. But somebody who came from it not out of hatred, out of genuine faith, who then feels confused when her own son comes out, a son she loves, and this is not a story of being cast away. This is a story of a family struggling through this
tolerate.
Yeah, this contradiction.
Right. Yeah.
And again, an example of somebody choosing to stay in a relationship even when that's confusing. And so, and it was like an exercise for myself in extending empathy and generosity to the people, to the culture that for most of my life has appeared to be quite vocal against me. And I wanted to really try and to enter that from a space of grace and grant that to Diane, and see if she could be somebody that I sympathize with, that I actually liked, and I do. I really like her. She was like one of my favorite characters to write.
Was she? Because she couldn't be farther from in some ways the person you are, and yet, she is she's still a loving person.
And she's like a little spicy, and I kind of love her trajectory of self-pride, the way that she has built up this real estate practice for herself, and basically become the breadwinner of her family, and she takes great pride in that. I also think that she is one of the characters that probably grows the most. And, and I wanted to be realistic, and this takes place over 6 months. And so the degree of growth is not going to be a lot. I mean, we're talking like real inches
I don't know,
here.
Brian. I mean, there's a lot of permeating.
There's a lot of permeating
going on here.
But I think Diane takes like one of the bigger steps.
Yes. But I also think that like one of the things that happens here that's interesting, because I mean, again, this is a very good example of who I know you to be as a human being, which is like an incredibly empathetic person, who's curious about other people's experiences, how they make the choices they make, what their like lives and personhoods are like. And I really enjoy the fact that every vote we know that gets cast by these characters, it's cast not for a policy-oriented reason, but for an emotional one, which is a real distillation of how most people wind up voting anyway. And I love that. That is not a question.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think that's what I've just absorbed from watching the same crazy political ride that we're all on, is that there is something else other than how somebody stands on policy and positions, that there is something intuitive, there's something emotional about the way that people enact their politics, and that the candidates become representative of so much more than what they actually are. And what people bring to that can be really mysterious.
But how much, I'm really, really curious about the process here. Like, was there ever a moment where you were like, I gotta bring in, when this was a satire, for instance, like, what were you satirizing? Because what it feels to me, this feels like it has been on a stove for like 24 hours if you're cooking. And it just has been boiled down to like its most essential, like emotional and structural priorities. But when when we were supposed to laugh at some aspect of this book, what were you importing? I think to make it, explicitly funny.
I think initially it was just, I was, wanted to like poke a little air out of this like wealthy gay enclave that had descended on this, rural upstate district. And one that just felt like a little easy and ultimately uninteresting. Exactly.
In some ways, right.
And then more importantly, it actually just didn't feel true or accurate. My intention was to, as I said, like step back and to look critically from the outside at what I and my friends in our community, how we might be perceived. And the reality is, I've seen all around me in my community people who are deeply invested in the Hudson Valley, people who care, people who volunteer, people who now live there full time, who have built lives there, built relationships there with local, with their neighbors. And so it also wasn't accurate. And so I didn't want to satirize for the sake of a cheap laugh because it's self-satirizing, because of course we can always just make fun of, the oblivious second homeowners. That also wasn't true to what I was seeing, which was people who really made the effort to look around and to see the community other than just a weekend escape.
Was this in any way therapeutic to resolving whatever tension or like discomfort with how permeable the boundary is for you between here and there?
It resolved nothing. It still feels like the ultimate luxury and the ultimate blessing.
Do you feel like an interloper in some way yourself?
I think what I feel is that I really wish I could commit my energy to both places. I think that's the hard thing, is having one foot in and one foot out, and to start building relationships up there, to start participating in organizations, to build friendships, to see the robust cultural offerings of what artists are doing up there, and to know that, for most of the month I'm actually going to be here. And so I'm going to miss a lot of it. I'm not going to be able to develop those relationships. I'm not going to be able to be a consistent volunteer. Like, the organizations that I want to be a part of, I'm not reliable in terms of my availability. And that's a shame for me, because it prevents me from giving fully of myself there. And at the same time, I love New York. I could not also be here, to be able to participate in this, to be able to go to as much theater as I do. They are two worlds that feed different parts of me that feel so energizing in different ways. But the fact that it's split is a consequence that I have to live with.
It's got like a strangely romantic, happy ending. I mean, from the standpoint of political fantasy. But I'm curious, like, do you like what the tension is, and how, if the people in these towns can reconcile with, the weekenders who come and either expand or deform, or whatever the prevailing energy is about.
Yeah, I
New
think
Yorkers who come up.
I think it's impossible to say kind of whether these two communities kind of writ large will reconcile with each other. I think the thing that I was interested in ultimately was how each of these characters makes a decision that I think collectively can start to change perception and relationships. And so, it makes me think of, there's a scene, it's there's like a 4th of July parade, and one of the characters, Eric, it starts with a Memorial Day parade. There's also, there's like a 4th of July picnic. It's a picnic now. It started as the parade when I shuffled all the chapters and moved up to the beginning. This is a multi-year process. It's now 4th of July picnic, and one of the characters, Eric, wanted to go, and his husband didn't. And so they didn't go. And he reflects on what was the missed opportunity of being there, and like, why should you show up at a community 4th of July picnic? It's like, the food's not going to be good. You're going to spend all your time looking for parking. Maybe a like Girl Scout troop, is just like standing there and they're waving, and like, what are you doing there? You're a part-time resident. You're only here for the weekend. Why are you spending your time at this community event? And he comes to the conclusion that that it is worthwhile, and the reason you show up to watch the Girl Scouts wave is so you can wave back, and so that they see you as a neighbor participating in this community. And that's Eric's personal realization. It might be a thing that he chooses to do that is not going to resolve the tension between weekenders and second homeowners, is not going to answer any of the economic questions. But if each person chose to show up and just share space with their neighbors, maybe that's the start to the healing. This book ultimately is not about the politics. It's not about the election. It is about the relationships. It's about the growth. It's about the realizations that happen along the way. And so that was that actually informed the approach that I had to take. And so it was the idea, the concept, the main point from the beginning, and it determined everything that followed.
I loved the cast of characters, and I thought the book it was a quick read, but I'm curious if you had to fight to keep it in that page length, or if you almost, because I wish it was longer. So I'm like, with that cast of characters, did you have to chop off any that you wish you could have kept in, or was that page length and that book length solid for you?
Thank you. I love that you have all. It's been out for a single day.
I didn't
and you've
say anything. I was about to say,
you've all read it
wow.
already. It's really impressive. I really like slim novels. It was a goal of mine to keep this really tight. I also, for 12 years at the New York Times, was writing the dance listings, in which I was given like 75 words.
200 words. 75?
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
Like when we first started, we were listing every single dance performance in New York City.
RIP listings.
Yeah, like really back in the day. And I would have like 50 to 75 words to like do it all. And so I learned efficiency, and I learned how to take a 10-word sentence and to turn it into 5 words. And that also became my preference. I also wanted this to be a story that pulls you along, that has a sense of momentum. And I was very intentional about word count. I was very intentional about chapter length. My mom loves section breaks because it helps
I love
her.
a section break too.
Because then you
I
can.
mean, as a writer, they're
Yes.
just, what a great invention.
It's an amazing invention.
You can just shake the Etch-a-Sketch. Anyway, go on.
You can like put the bookmark in at any time and just go to bed.
It's a very generous act for a reader too.
And so when I came up with the 6-month structure and realized that I was going to follow this month by month, and then within the months there were going to be chapters, and within chapters there were going to be section breaks, I was actually keeping very close tabs on word count to ensure that each month became subsequently shorter, so that the sense of being pulled through the story, the sense of momentum as we got closer and closer to the election, and it was completely my goal for this to be a 300-page book, and it's 304.
Well, I mean, with all the other stuff.
With all the other stuff,
Right.
with the padding. So yes, completely by intention.
I'm wondering, because you spent so much time thinking about and with the Duffels and the locals, if it's influenced the way that you yourself interact or think about them, both camps when you're upstate, and how that sort of changed the way that you think about being upstate.
Yeah, it has, definitely. I think it's changed the way that both Stephen and I spend our energy up there and what we want to be involved with, and to be sure that we are in conversation with people who live there full time, that we are contributing in a positive way, that we are, and that we're just good neighbors. At the same time, I don't live there full time. I also do enjoy our pool parties filled with rosé. It's not, I'm not disowning that. There's something so beautiful about that, and our community up there and the camaraderie that we've built. And we might be a bit of a bubble, and it's something that I have to accept, that I embrace. But I think the point is awareness. I think what I wanted to show here is that the way that we are in any community, whether, wherever that is in the country, whether that's a city, whether that's a rural space, that we exist in it with an awareness of our neighbors, that we don't fall into a blind obliviousness, and the self-isolation that actually robs us of the opportunity to expand our worldview.